Well, joining us now is an agricultural entrepreneur, Reginald Ekeanyanwu, who is also the chairman, CEO of Sagasso Africa Limited. Good to see you and thanks for your time.
Thank you for
listening to Tolu and the respondents there tells one story. Nigerians, some Nigerians, if not many Nigerians, are hungry. But again, let's talk about the portfolio of issues of how we got here. I think that's a starting point.
I want to thank you very much for having me on in the studio today. I want to say that in the past, agriculture had always been our basics of our economy. And we cultivated what we ate, and we were able to produce enough food for ourselves to consume and then also to ship to other African states. And that was because we were involved in mechanized agriculture. If you go back to like 25, 30 years ago, especially during the 80s, 70s, 80s, you could remember that those were the periods that we were experiencing the granite pyramids of Kano, and the entire northern Nigeria was engaged in agriculture. And you see, what that did for us was that we were not hungry. We were producing what we were consuming. Now, today, we have left agriculture, and then we have had a situation where we have individual farmers farming for themselves. And these individual farmers are not able to have access to the agricultural implements that will scale up production. Now, but in the past few years, we have realized that we cannot just look at agriculture from the perspectives that we have been looking at it for a while. And that is the perspective of doing hoe and cutlasses, the back-breaking agriculture. And that is the reason why our youths are moving out of the villages. They are no longer interested in the agricultural space. But over the past 3-4 years, we started realizing that for us to be able to do agriculture the way we have to do agriculture, we must focus on creating clusters and cooperatives of farming. So what that does is that it makes it easier for us to provide implements, agricultural implements. And if you check, the last government spent a lot of money investing in agriculture, but they didn't have effect. And that was because the intended plans didn't get to those who were supposed to implement the process. And that is the average farmer. Let me say this. The farmers are the most important factor in our national existence. The farmers are the ones that has made it possible for us to be able to continue to have a measure of the absence of poverty and hunger. But now, the questions that we need to ask ourselves and answer is, how are we going to produce what we need? Now, the government is talking about investment in agriculture. I think that we shouldn't be looking at agriculture based on what we have already been doing. We should be opening new frontiers. Part of the things that we should be looking at from our consultations with farmers across the nation is that we need to clear new farmlands. We need to do industrialized and mechanized agriculture. We need to bring tractors. We need to have bulldozers that are bulldozing lands that we're going to open up new places. We have the lands, so it is high time for us to be able to get involved in agriculture in a mechanized sense, in the way it is with the developed world. If not so, there's no way we can compete. And yes, sir.
Mechanized agriculture, as you know, as sexy as it sounds, it requires a lot of funding, definitely. I mean, we heard from Mr. Peter Obi in his intervention on today's, marking World Food Day, that the major problem is lack of investment over the years. And like you said, look, there have been investments in the past, but they were not effective. What do we need to do now? The president has declared, he declared a state of emergency in agriculture. What should that state of emergency really look like? What should be done?
No.
Both in the short term and, of course, in the long term.
The first thing we need to do is aggregate the farmers. When we aggregate the farmers, we create investment portfolios on their behalf. With that, we can actually attract private sector investment, public sector investment, and also be able to direct the funds that the federal government is providing for this purpose. Now, secondly, recently we realized that the kind of implements, the amount of implements, agricultural implements we need to do what has to be done cannot only come from the government, it has to come from the people. So we started a franchise, an Uber-like franchise, where we can have the general public fund the provision of the agricultural implements. In the past 4 years, we have created clusters of farmers across this nation. We have created clusters of farmers in Kaduna, in Kano. We have created clusters of farmers in Benue. We have orange farmers, they are ready for processing. We have cassava farmers in Ushongo, in Adoka that are ready. We are doing an ISAPA project. Now, what we have done in this is that we have created the farmers. The farmers are waiting for the implement. Now we are starting a process that will allow individuals, you don't have to be a farmer. You can actually buy a tractor, and we have farmers that need a tractor. We link your tractor to the farmers, and they pay and use. You earn your money, and then the farmers are able to scale up production. So yes, sir.
Sorry to cut you. Let me bring in this. You know, we've seen quite some young people go into farming. You spoke about the backbreaking, which suddenly is disappearing. We've seen people, I mean, you're graduates, we've seen fine gentlemen and women going into farming. But what's the place of security here and infrastructural development? Just recently we saw viral videos of people whose wares, goods, produce, got rotten or into impassable roads. So aren't these some of the key concerns
that need to be addressed?
Yes, that need to be addressed.
Exactly. Now, one of the problems is that we are not doing value addition at source. We actually move raw resources from the host communities that are farming and go to meet value addition or meet consumption in other places. Now, if we married, there's a project that we have been doing called a Rural Industrialization Urbanization Plan, where we reverse the movement of raw resources. We prefer to say that processing plants should move to the raw resources so that they are married at source. So the issue of food loss is addressed.
Right.
And let me be very direct and very frank. The amount of food we lose a day every year is more than what we can even imagine. It can turn around our economic profile. It can affect the naira in many ways. So if we are going to achieve food security, first of all, we are going to have to provide agricultural implements to these farmers. And we are saying that it is possible to partner with the government and also the public space so that individuals can afford to partner with these farmers, provide some people can buy storage facilities, and then we give them to the farmers lease them with this person. So there becomes a partnership between everybody that is not into farming and the direct farmers. And then secondly, we should also process at source. Go to Benue State every orange season, you see the amount of road ranges that go to waste. Go to during the cassava season, so you see the same thing. So if we invested into mechanization of agriculture, believe me, we are not going to find ourselves in the hunger situation that we find ourselves.
How about, because I recall growing up in my early years in Ilorin, my mom had a garden. And that's why I love gardening till today. Is it possible for government to consciously encourage, feeding ourselves at that level, family, farming?
Yes.
Is it a possibility?
Yes.
I mean, while we think of the long-term, mechanized farming and all of that, how can we immediately now, begin to help ourselves, plant a wedu, ugu, and what have you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of us grew up having farms at our backyards. Our moms, our parents went to the gardens to pick what we used to eat at home. Now, that was because there was a consciousness. I keep saying that we must preach agriculture the same way the religious institutions preach the gospel, preach the messages they have to preach. We must create a consciousness. We must re-engineer the minds of Nigeria to know that it is our duty and our responsibility to feed ourselves. We cannot depend. I'm reading these days that we are importing groundnut oil, red oil. We are importing gari. It's a shame that we have the capacity to produce what we eat and what the rest of the world can eat, and yet we are lagging behind. And we have the land, we have good soil, we have technologies. Technologies are available. I keep saying that every day I drive through the roads of Nigeria, I see processing plants. I see rice plants being driven on the roads. You see the big. I'm not saying that luxury is not good, but I'm saying that we shouldn't have that amount of luxury on the roads when we don't have our people working, when we don't have jobs for the youths, when we have people farming with hoes and cutlasses. I believe that if Nigerians become conscious of the fact that we must grow food, and then the general public partners with the agricultural sector, the farmers, we can produce enough food to feed the world.
So let's see if we can close on getting solutions. We've identified
the challenges,
security, the challenges, and again, by the way, quickly here, you recall I think constitutionally, agriculture is the only business you can go into, whether you're the president or anyone, civil servant, without breaching any law.
Yeah.
But quickly here, what are the quick fixes we can bring to bear, security-wise and others that you've raised, that can help project us back to winning ways?
Remember that security is as a result of poverty. Poverty is behind our insecurity issue. I used to say that Nigeria didn't used to be poor because of that. Our fathers, 30, 40 years ago, there were no bandits on the road, nobody was kidnapping anybody, but because there were jobs. So when poverty is not the absence of money, the lack of money, is the absence of the opportunity to make money, jobs. So, and agriculture happens to be an area that can absorb the youth of Nigeria. And you see, if we do not start immediately to begin to provide incentives for the youth to get back to agriculture, we will continue to have a vacuum. We'll continue to have the joblessness staring us at face. And as long as the joblessness is there is going to be insecurity.
Absolutely.
So if we want to solve the issues of insecurity, we are going to have to do it right. There are no longer free lunches anymore. There's no money for anybody to waste. If this government is earmarking funds for agriculture, those funds must get to the farmers. We must get them, instead of giving them monies, let's not give them monies, let's give them implements. Let's give them tractors. Let's give them irrigation systems. Let's give them seeds. Let's give them fertilizers. Let's give them treatments when the diseases arise. And then let's also provide storages. We waste a lot of food annually. If we made storage a business, you will realize that we will not have a situation that we are having.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, we should marry raw resources and value addition at source. We should process the oranges in Oshongo where they are produced. We should process cassavas in the communities that are fast farming the cassavas. We should process the mangoes in the communities fast farming the mangoes. When you do that, you will see that the urban migration will cease. Then we'll start having people returning back to the rural communities, and then you can see we can have a beautiful life.
Oh, very well said, Reginald Ekeanyanwu. I remember Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, and all of those. Thank you so much for joining us on News Night.